So what is the batch programming? I think you might have been aware. So what is the meaning of batch programming? Let's say if I have multiple steps. Let's say I want to insert 10 records into employee table. After insertion, I want to update 5 records in department table. After that, I want to delete 8 records in the let's say employee testing table, something like that. So if you look at here, I have multiple tasks. This is task 1, this is task 2, this is task 3, like that. So instead of I do individually, we can also keep these all tasks inside the batch. You can also keep all these things inside the batch, and you can execute this batch once. The best example is you are installing operating system. If you install the operating system, you are going to run the batch file. So batch files. So once you execute that, what is going to happen? It's going to execute series of tasks. It is going to execute series of tasks. So therefore, so batch programming is not only in Apex, it's there everywhere. Batch programming is not only in the Apex, it's there in everywhere. So even in DOS also you can write the batch programs. So if you look at here, even in DOS also you can write the batch programming. How to write batch files in DOS. Okay, so if you see here, so how to write batch files? Even if you want to write batch files, let's say DOS. What is the meaning of DOS? Whatever you do here, it is called DOS. Now, first task, I am displaying the I perform DAR. Second task, I perform CLS. Third task, I am moving out the directory. Fourth task, I am moving one more directory. Fifth task, I am going to another directory. Sixth task, something like that. So instead of I perform this task one by one, I can write a batch file and I can execute that batch file so that all the tasks perform at once. So therefore, the same way in Apex also you can write the batch files. If you look at here, so this is how you write the batch files. Edit. Remember this, the batch file will have the extension called .bat in the BAT here. So here you can type a list of the commands. See, pass, directory, something and all. So once that is ready, come out from that and execute that. So if you want, I can show you one thing here. So let's say I write the batch file. Let me open the notepad. Here, let's say I am saying DAR, then CLS, CD ... like that. I perform 3 tasks. Then save as. Save as, you need to save as a batch file. Let's say channa.bat. Now this is a batch file. Now let me go to here, cmd, and try to execute this batch file. Look at here. Okay, I am executing. When I execute, what is the first one? DAR. See, if you look at here, the output, DAR is over, CLS is over, and CD ... From the current directory, you came out from one directory. That means all the tasks are performed. That's what the meaning of batch programming. Now, how to write the batch programming in the Apex? So you need to follow step by step, then only you can able to do. Let's see what are the different steps available to do the batch programming in Apex. So in simple word, Batch programming is nothing but the execution of collection of tasks. Now if you look at here, the first step, if you want to write the batch programming, okay, the first step, if you want to write the batch programming, I'll send this tutorial for you. Okay, so if you look at here, the first step is, till now we have written the classes. If you want to write a batch programming, the step one is your class must implement a interface called batchable. Please see this. If you remember these steps, then it is easy to take the interviews. Otherwise, because most of them are asking in interviews, how do you write the batch programming? What are the methods? All these things. So the explanation, whatever I am giving, that is going to answer everything. Okay. So if you want to write the batch programming, your class, whatever class you write, that must implement batchable interface. And a batchable interface is available in the database package. Batchable interface is available in the database package. I'm repeating again. Step number one, your class must implement the batchable interface. Batchable interface is available in the database package. That's why database.batchable. So this batchable interface is having three methods. Look at here. I am saying this is the interface, but result is what? Class. If you remember, I explained this concept previously. This is the interface and the result is class. Result is class means whatever available in the interface methods or whatever methods available in the interface, you have to implement those. See this again. This is the interface and the result is class. When the result can be class? If you implement all the interface methods. Now the question is, what are the methods available inside the batchable interface? What are the methods available inside the batchable interface? We have three methods. We look at here, we have three methods. The first one is a start method, the second one is execute method, third one is finish method. So if you want to write the batch programming, the first step is what? You need to implement batchable interface in your class. That is the step one. What is the step two? The step two is you need to provide implementation for batchable interface methods. You need to provide implementation for batchable interface methods. There are three methods inside the batchable interface. The first one is start, the second one is execute, the third one is finish. Now you need to understand what to write in the start method generally, what to write in the execute method, what to write in the finish method. If you understand that, then we are good, and the logic is based on your current project or based on the situation. But you need to understand what kind of logic you need to write or what kind of statements you can keep inside the start method, what kind of statements you can keep inside the execute method, and what kind of statements you can keep inside the finish method. Okay, so therefore once you implement your class or once you implement the batchable interface, the step two is nothing but providing implementation for these three methods. Providing implementation for these three methods. And if you look at these three methods, start method, execute method, and the finish method, all these three methods takes a common parameter called batchable context. All these three methods takes a common parameter called batchable context. What this batchable context provides? It provides the information about the batch, like when to start, what kind of task it is performed, whether batch is ready or not, that kind of information it can provide. In simple words, if anyone asks a question, so what is the common parameter between all the methods? The common parameter between start, execute and finish is batchable context. Batchable context. And if you look at here, execute and finish, return type is void. That means these two methods will not return anything. These two methods will not return anything. Now if you look at the start method, start method returns a query locator or iteratable. Start method returns query locator or iterable. Okay, so when start method returns a query locator, when start method returns a iterable, that is what the question again. See this again. If you look at the start method may return the query locator or iterable. Rest two methods are fine. Void. Void means those will not return anything. Those will not return anything. So when this start method returns a query locator, when this start method returns a iterable, that is the question. Now, if you look at here, inside the start method, you will be writing some logic. Inside the start method, you will be writing some logic. Let's say if that logic is returning the records. Yesterday we have seen. If you want to get the records, then you are going to use what? SOQL. Salesforce Object Query Language. And if at all you are writing that kind of statements, then it is going to return the query locator. That query locator is going to have a space to accommodate all these records. To accommodate all these records. So there is something called governor limits. Yesterday we talked about governor limits. There is something called governor limits. Yesterday we talked about that. So what is the meaning of governor limits? Like if you see how many SOQLs we can have, how many SLs we can have in the program. Do you remember yesterday we talked about in a program how many SOQLs are allowed, how many SOSLs are allowed. Okay, what is the how many records are allowed, how many function callouts are allowed. All these things are we discussed yesterday. I ask you guys to remember as many as possible. Those are called governor limits. Those are called governor limits. So therefore, if you have a logic something to return the record, then your start method is going to return the query locator. That query locator will help to iterate two records. Then other than that, it returns the iterable. If there is no records and all, then it is going to return the iterable. Iterable is again an interface. Iterable is a class through which we can able to get the information of the start method return stubs. Let's say your start method is returning bunch of the data which is not records. Bunch of the data which is not records. Then you can use iterable. Through iterable you can read the data. If you remember, how are we reading the set data? How are we reading the map data? How are we reading the list data? You remember, right? So the same way here. How to read the set data one by one? How to read the map data one by one? How to read the list data one by one? I already explained. The same way through iterable interface we can read. Okay. Now coming to the execute method. What to write in the execute method? Okay, if you look at here. So okay, if you look at here, so there are three methods. The first one is start method. There are three methods. The first one is start method. That's what? Execute method and finish method. So what to write in the start method? If you look at here, and remember this start method will be called only once when batch programming started. It's like a servlet init method. In the servlet also we have three methods: init method, service method, destroy method. If you are aware of the Java, then in the Java servlets also we have three methods: init method, service method, destroy method. So there init method will be called only once. Destroy method also will be called only once. Service method will be called any number of times. Now coming to here also we have three methods: start, execute and finish. Start method will be called only once when the batch is started or when the batch begins. Generally when batch begins, what kind of information you need? Generally you need the information to get the records and all. So that's why write the code to collect the records or objects in the start method. That means you will be writing the logic to get the records in the start method. Let's say you can write something like this. Inside the start method, you can write something like this. Select star from employee. So what does it mean? It is going to get the records. Select star from employee. What does it mean? It is going to get the records. These kind of statements you can write inside the start method, because start method is going to be executed only once when the apex or when the batch begins. Okay. Now coming to execute method. Now in the start method you are getting the records. Once you get the records, what do you do in the execute method? Okay. So in the start method you are getting the records. Once you get the records, then what do you do with the records? What to do with the records? That you write in the execute method. I am repeating again. In the start method you are getting the records. In the start method you are getting the records. So for what purpose you are getting the records? There will be some purpose, right? You need to read the employee salaries, you need to populate the employee salaries, you need to manipulate the employee salaries, you need to delete something, you need to update something and all. Those stuff you do in the execute method. Those steps you do in the execute method. So therefore, write the code to process the chunk of the data in the execute method. That means you are getting the records here, you are getting the data here. Now you need to do something with the data. What to do with the data and all, you write in the execute method. Okay. Now we have a finish method. Now as I said, start method will be called only once when batch begins. The same way, finish method will be called only once when batch is going to be end or before batch ends. So therefore, finish method will be called after batch process ends. Sorry, not before ends, after batch process ends. That means what? Let's say you created a batch process. Just now I shown you. Okay, I deleted that. There is a batch file. Okay, whenever when batch begins, then start method calls. After batch ends, then your finish method will be called. Then what kind of logic I can write here? So finish method will be called after batch ends or after batch processed. Then what kind of logic you can have there? You can have some logics like sending email. Say you might have been seen in the companies, right? So once the batches are completed, you may have patch updates. Once the patch updates are done, then what you will be doing or what they will be doing? They will be sending an email. Okay, this patch is done, you are good to go. So that means what? Once the tasks are completed, once batch is completed, you will be sending emails. That kind of logics you can write in the finish method. That kind of logic you can write in the finish method. That's how you can write the batch programming. So if you remember this one, then it is good. Then what to write and all, it's a client specific or customer specific requirements. Now see this. How to track them? So now batch process or batch. Batch is nothing but what? Collection of programs or collection of tasks. It may take hour, it may take 2 hours, it may take 100 hours. Okay. Now I want to track the status. If you want to track the status, all your methods are taking a parameter called what? Batchable context. All your methods are taking a parameter called batchable context. Using batchable context, you will come to know the status of the batch. So therefore, if anyone asks how do I find out the status of the batch, then you can use batchable context class, batchable context object. So in the batchable context object, there is something called get job ID. Get job ID that can tell the status, or using that you can track the progress. So therefore, if you see the question, how to track the progress of the batch? If you want to track the progress of the batch, then batchable context dot get job ID. Batchable context dot get job ID is the method. Okay. Now you can schedule the batch. So generally batch programs will be scheduled. Like these time go and execute it. Let's say Saturday at 10 p.m. I want to execute the batch. So you can schedule the batch. At the same time you can also call the batch. If you want to call the batch, then what is the method? Database.execute batch. So therefore, if anyone asks how do you call the batch programming or how do you call the batch apex, then database.execute batch is a method. Database.execute batch is a method. Now remember that, or remember this, all batches are by default stateless. All batches are by default stateless. What does that mean? Do you remember? This is how I have written the batch, right? Just now. So first thing is what DAR, second thing is what CLS, third thing is what CD dot dot, fourth thing is what CD something, CD or make a directory, MKDIR, make a directory called Satya or Channa. So if you look at here, this is the first task, this is the second task, this is the third task, this is the fourth task. All batches are by default stateless. What does it mean? Let's say right now I am processing this. Let's say right now I am processing this. I cannot remember the previous one because this is a batch is stateless. Stateless cannot remember what happens previously. I am repeating this again. All batches are by default stateless. That means it cannot remember what happened previously. Now the question is, how do I make my batch rememberable the previous steps? That means, how do I make my batch stateful? Let's say I am here. My batch can remember what happens previously. How do I make that? Or how do I do that? So the question is, so the point is what? All batches are by default stateless. That means it cannot remember the previous status. Now how do I make my batch to remember the previous progress or status? If your batch needs to remember the previous status or progress, then your class must implement database.stateful. If you want to write the batch programming, then your class must implement what? Database.batchable. Then if your batch has to be stateful, then database.stateful. Now if you see the example, now this example shows everything. Look at here. So step 1, what is the step 1? Your class must implement batchable. Now if I want stateful, your class must implement database.stateful. If I want to write the batch programming, your class must implement the batchable. So you need to implement those. Now you are going to write queries, entities. Entities means objects. You will be having fields, all these things. Okay. If you want to write a constructor, you can write the constructor. Else, you need to provide implementation for start method, execute method, and finish method. In the start method, generally, what kind of logic you will write? You will write the logic to get the records. In the execute method, what kind of logic you will write? You will process the record, or you will be dealing with the data whatever you got, or you will be processing the chunk of the data. Once you complete that, in the finish method, what kind of logic you will be writing? Generally sending emails, or after completion of the batch, if you want to send the report, then you will be writing that kind of logic inside the finish method. That's how you can do. Now, just now I said, how do I start the batch programmatically? Just now I said. So you can schedule the batch, and also you can start the batch programmatically. If you want to start the batch programmatically, how do you do? Database.execute batch. Now coming to here, so how to start the batch programmatically? If you want to start the batch programmatically, what's the batch here? P18 batch. That's the batch programming, or that is the batch class, or that's the batch program. Now I want to execute this programmatically. If I want to execute this programmatically, what is this? Database.execute batch is the method. Then which I want to execute? I want to execute P18 batch. So P18 batch. You need to create an object for P18 batch. Whenever you create an object for P18 batch, that particular batch will be called. That particular batch will be called. Now, if it is taking parameters, you can pass the parameters. If it is taking parameters, you can pass the parameters. You can try to execute this one by writing what? System.debug something and all, system.debug and all, it will work. So this is how you can write the batch programs. Any questions till now? Supreet, are you sleeping?
No, not
yet. Are you there? Okay, now the next thing is that, as I said, batch programs you can execute programmatically like this. If you want to execute the programmatically, database.executable batch, then which batch? Whatever the batch class we have written. So create an object for that. So that will be called. Now you can also schedule the batches. So how do I schedule the batches? So Apex scheduler we need to understand. Apex scheduler we need to understand. Assume that we have written the programs or we have written the batches or programs, whatever it may be, and you want to schedule those. That means execute this particular batch, execute this particular Apex, execute this particular class on every Sunday at 7 o'clock. Execute this particular batch or this program every Monday at 6 p.m. or every month first Sunday 6 p.m. like that. Then you will be using Apex schedulers. That means you can schedule the task. Execute every month first Sunday 6 p.m. first Sunday 8 a.m. like that. And remember this, how do I do that? If you want to do the Apex scheduling, then your class must implement schedulable interface. Step 1. What is the step 1? If you want to do with the Apex scheduling or Apex scheduler, that means you want to schedule something if you want to schedule something, you need to implement schedulable interface in your class. Schedulable is the interface. You need to implement schedulable interface in your class. That's the step 1. Step 2, if you look at here, this is the interface, but result is class. That means you need to implement all the methods available in this schedulable interface. Schedulable interface is having only one method, that's called the execute method. Even if you look at the help, Apex schedule, schedulable, Apex scheduler. Okay, look at here. So schedulable is the interface. If you want to schedule something, then your class must implement schedulable interface, and this is having only one method called execute. This is having only one method called execute. So you need to provide implementation for that method. You need to provide implementation for that method. So what are you going to have inside that method? So take this example. If you look at the example, public class P11. Then I want to do the schedulable, or I want to do scheduling. Then you need to implement the interface called the schedulable interface. Now this interface is having a method called the execute method. Now we need to implement that method. I am implementing this method. So what kind of steps I will be writing here? What kind of steps I will be writing inside the execute method? What kind of steps you will be writing? Execute method. You will be specifying all the steps. Like if you look at here, the purpose of the schedulable is what? To schedule the task. So those kind of steps you will be handling here. Now the other thing is that if you want to execute the schedulable Apex, then you need to use something called the system.schedulable method. Okay, look at here please. So this class is what? Schedulable class. That means you can schedule these classes. Then if I want to schedule this class, then I need to inform the system to schedule this one on every Sunday, right? I need to inform the system, because who is going to execute the batches now? Or who is going to execute the classes? The system. So that's why there is a method called the system. Inside the system there is a class called the system. Inside the system class there is a schedule method. So you need to inform this, or you need to call this method. This schedulable or schedule method takes parameters. It takes 3 parameters. If you look at here, system.schedule takes 3 parameters: name, when, and object. Now look at here. Assume that I want to schedule this class on every Sunday 6 p.m. I want to schedule this class every Sunday 6 p.m. Then if I want to schedule this class, what the method I need to use? System.schedule. Okay, now system.schedule. Okay, you can give some name. Let's say I am giving XXX. Don't worry about the name. Anything you can give. Now when I want to execute? Every Sunday. Okay, every Sunday means, so if you look at here, this one, 1 to 7. So you can, if you put okay, so before that you can understand here. So when, how to write the when? if you look at here, if I write 0, 0, 13, what does it mean? So 0, 0, 13 means, 30 means what? 1 p.m. So therefore, that class runs every day at 1 p.m. That means, let's say I am writing 0 space 0 space 13. This particular class, what is the class name? New P11. New P11. This will be executed every day at 1 p.m. Now, if I am using the second one, that means if I am using this one here, what does it mean? This class runs, if you look at here, 0, 0, 22. 22 means what? 10 p.m. And 6L. What is the meaning of 6L? So it says days. So day starts from Sunday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that means 6th one. So that means what? Every Friday, 10 p.m. this class will be executed. Every Friday, 10 p.m. this class will be executed. That is what the meaning. Now, if you look at here, this one, let's say if I am using this format or this expression here, if I am using this expression here, what happens? So what I am trying to do? 0, 0, then I said 10. 10 means morning 10. Now question mark and all. Now I said Monday to Friday. That means this particular class will be executed Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. Okay, so now look at this one. If you look at here, so 20 means 10 p.m. So when this is? In 2010 year. That means this class runs every day, 20 means 8 p.m. sorry. That means this class runs every day at 8 p.m. in the entire 2010 year. That means what? So that is how you can schedule. Like this you can form the expressions. You can form the expressions whatever you want. So the conclusion here is that, so if you are writing the expression like this particular class, whatever you are specifying here, that will be executed every day 8 p.m. in the entire 2010 year. That's what the meaning. Like that you have the format here. You can go through different formats. If you look at here, this one. Okay. So like that you can specify so many formats. So here there are some formats. Yeah. So here there are some values. They explain about the values and all. I just given on a high level. I just given a couple of examples to understand how to schedule the task every week, every day, every month, every year, like that. Okay, that's about the variable. Now, so now let's say, now try to understand this. I have a table. Look at this. Okay, I have a class. Let's see the situation. This question most of the interviewers are asking. Okay, I have some records here. Let's say employee ID, employee name, employee salary. Let's say 101, Channa, 10 rupees. 102, Reddy, 20 rupees. 103, ABC, 30 rupees. And assume that I want to update these records or I want to modify these records. Assume that I want to modify these records. For modifying these records, assume that it takes 10 minutes.
Hello, Satya.
Okay. Okay.
Yes or no?
1 minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Okay, so if you look at here, assume that I have an employee table like this, and I am writing something like this. Select star from employee. That means what? I got the records. Now I would like to modify these records. Let's say I want to increase the salaries 10%. That means what? This will be 11, this will be 22, this will be 33 like that. To complete this operation, assume that it will take 10 minutes. To complete this, assume that it will take 10 minutes. Assume that it will take 10 minutes. Now, do you think that this 10 minutes others can't use? Yes, others can't use because I am modifying this. If I am modifying this, others cannot be used. That means what? I need to log these records. That means what? I need to log these records. How do I log the records? So yesterday I told how to get the records. If you look at here, if you want to get the records, how do you get the records? Select ID from accounts. So instead of accounts, you will be saying employee. Select ID from employee or select all from employee. Select ID, comma, name, comma, salary from employee. So it is going to get all the records. Now, I don't want others to modify when I am modifying. I don't want others to modify when I am modifying. That means what? I need to have a lock on this. How do I do the lock? By adding a statement called for update. By adding the statement called for update. So that means what? After the select statement, if you say for update, after the select statement, if you say for update, then these records others cannot modify until you complete the operation. Once you complete the operation, then others can modify. So therefore, the question is how to log the statements, locking the statements. If you want to log the statements, you need to use for update. Okay. So the same way, how to test the classes? There is a test start, test end, or stop test. These are some methods available. Okay. So that's how you can do the Apex scheduling. Now I would like to talk about some other steps quickly. These are not major, but generally people use this. So I want to talk about two more programs. Okay, if you look at here, this example is, yesterday I talked about the Apex triggers. If you want to practice one more example, you can practice this. So I'm not explaining this again. This is an example for triggers. Yesterday I explained the triggers example with the book. You can also practice the trigger example with the objects whatever we have. Okay, so I'm not talking on this now. So I'm just deleting this. This example is for the triggers. Okay, so the next thing is that I would like to discuss some small programs which will help in the real time. The first program is, how do I find out the URLs? So now I am in the Salesforce. If you look at here, I am here. I am here. How do I know the host name? How do I know the port number? How do I know the IP address? All these things. Okay, see this. I am writing the program. If you look at here, I am writing the program. Apex classes. Apex classes, let's say edit. Apex classes, let's say edit. Now I am writing the program. In the program, let's say I want to know what is the host name. I want to know what is the port number. I want to know what is the complete URL. All these things. If you want to know all these things, there is a class called URL class. There is a class called URL class. Now, URL class is having a method called get Salesforce base URL dot to external form. If you are using that, that will give what is the host name or what is the URL. So this is the output of that one. That means if you look at here, here you have so much of URL. This will be given by that method. This will be given by that method. The same way we have some more methods. If you see here, URL dot get current request URL. Get current request URL means it is going to give complete URL. Get current request URL means it is going to give complete URL. The same way we have some more things. URL dot get Salesforce base URL dot host name. What is the host name here? If you look at here, host name will be generally without HTTP. Host name generally will be without HTTP. So this is called host name. So that is what it is going to return. Now let's say protocol. What is the protocol here? HTTPS. If you want to know the protocol, URL dot get Salesforce base URL dot protocol. Get protocol. So it is going to give the protocol, HTTPS. The same way if you want to know what is the current query, so if you see here query parameters. If you look here, this is the entire URL. So this is the entire URL and these are the query parameters. After question mark, whatever we have, those are called query parameters. So if you want to know the query information, then URL dot get current request URL dot get query. So it is going to give the query parameters. It is going to give the query parameters. If you want me to execute, I can execute quickly, but you can very well go and practice this one. Let me execute this quickly. Save this. What happened? Line number 13 error. Okay. Okay, so it is saved successfully. Now let me run this one. Run test. So this class basically gives the information about the host name, protocols, okay, query parameters, all these things. Debug logs. You can very well go and execute, it's the same all the time. Now look at here. Yeah. So if you look at here, base URL. So this is what the base URL from here. If you look at here, current URL is this much. So if you look at here, that's there. Okay. Next to host name. Look at the host name. Look at the protocol. Okay. Look at the query strings. So right now query parameters are not there. That's why it's not giving. Like that you can execute this. Like that you can use the query or URL class. Basically URL class is having some method. That method will help you to find out what is the current host name, what is the current parameters, what is the current URL, what is the current protocol, all these things. That's it, nothing more than that. Now I would like to explain something called typecasting. We already seen variable typecasting. Do you remember some time back I explained? Okay, long can be converted to double, or long can be converted into float, float can be converted into double, double can be converted into decimal. But reverse is not possible. This is what? This is for what? Data types. The same way, you can also do the typecasting for the classes. So if you want to do the typecasting for the classes, minimum 2 classes are required. Minimum 2 classes are required. I want to have only one conclusion here. So if you look at here, public class virtual C1 and there is a C2. That means C2 you are getting from C1. So which is the base class here? C1 is the base class and C2 is the derived class. I am repeating this again. C1 is the base class and forget about what is there here. Our focus is typecasting. Our focus is typecasting. So if you want to do classes typecasting, variable typecasting we already seen. Now we are doing classes typecasting. If you want to do the classes typecasting, minimum 2 classes are required. Minimum 2 classes are required. So therefore, I have taken a class called C1 and there is a class called C2 and the C2 I am getting from C1. That means here is the scenario. Here is the scenario. This is the C1 and from C1 you are getting C2. So this is called what? Single inheritance. From C1 you are getting C2 or C2 you are getting from C1. C2 you are getting from C1. That means it is a single inheritance. So this is a base class and this is called derived class or child class. This is called child or derived class. Okay. So this is the base class, this is the child class or derived class. Now look at it here. I am creating an object for C2, that means child class. Now I am creating an object for C1, that means base class. Now O1 is what? Child class object, O2 is what? Base class object. O1 is what? Child class object, O2 is what? Base class object. Now remember this, you can always assign base class to child class, or sorry, child class to base class directly. That means what? So if you look at here, there is a display method here. If you look at here, there is a display method. Both are having display method. O2 is equal to O1. If you say O2 is equal to O1, that is correct. What does it mean? O2 is equal to O1 means what? O1 is what? Derived class. O2 is what? Base class. That means what? Derived class object you can assign to base class directly. Derived class object you can assign to base class directly. But reverse is not true. That means what? Base class object you cannot assign to derived class. That means this is wrong. Base class object you cannot assign to derived class. This is wrong. If you want to make it correct, then you need to do explicit typecasting. O2 is what? A derived class. That means C2. O2 is what? Sorry, base class. O2 is what? Base class. And you are trying to convert into derived class, C2. That's why you need to do explicit typecasting. So therefore the conclusion is base class object you cannot assign to derived class directly. If you want to assign, then do the explicit typecasting. Next, derived class object you can assign to base class directly. We don't have any issues. That's the conclusions. That's how typecasting works. So when you have multiple classes, you need to do the typecasting. The conclusions are what? We can assign derived class object to base class directly. We can assign derived class object to base class directly. We can't assign base class object to derived class directly. If you want to do, then do the typecasting. The typecasting is what? External typecasting or explicit typecasting. That's how typecasting works. If you have any questions, you can ask me, else we can stop here for today. Any questions?
No, fine.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you, bye.